Hey guys, we're back to finish reading chapter 1 of The Giver by Lois Lowry. So if you have your book handy, I encourage you to grab it. I'm also going to pull it up on the screen here. And we left off in the black book with yellow or white words on page 5. We're going to start at the top. If you have the other book, we're just a little bit further along. You are on page 6, just after those 3 asterisks. Oh, I love this. Who wants to be the first tonight for feelings? Jonas's father asked at the conclusion of the family meal. It was one of the rituals, the evening telling of feelings. Sometimes Jonas and his sister Lily argued over turns over who would get to go first. Their parents, of course, were part of the ritual. They too told their feelings each evening. But like all parents, all adults, they didn't fight and wheedle for their turn. Think about that. Do you do something like that at home? Well, first of all, some of us don't even sit around the table as a family together anymore, but that's something that they do in this community. They all sit around the table for dinner together. And then when they're done eating, let's share our feelings. Doesn't that sound fun? Do you do anything like that at the dinner table with your family though? We sometimes do. We talk about what happened during the day, but we don't analyze it like you're going to see they do here. Nor did Jonas tonight. His feelings were too complicated this evening. He wanted to share them, but he wasn't eager to begin the process of sifting through his own complicated emotions, even with the help that he knew his parents could give. You go, Lily, he said, seeing his sister, who was much younger, only a 7, wiggling with impatience in her chair. I felt angry this afternoon, Lily announced. My childcare group was at the play area and we had a visiting group of 7s and they didn't obey the rules at all. One of them, a male, I don't know his name, kept going right to the front of the line for the slide, even though the rest of us were all waiting. I felt so angry at him. I made my hand into a fist like this. She held up a clenched fist and the rest of the family smiled at her small, defiant gesture. Why do you think the visitors didn't obey the rules? Mother asked. Lily considered and shook her head. I don't know. They acted like animals, Jonas suggested. He laughed. That's right, Lily said, laughing too, like animals. Neither child knew what the word meant exactly, but it was often used to describe someone uneducated or clumsy, someone who didn't fit in. Where were the visitors from? Father asked. Lily frowned, trying to remember. Our leader told us when he made the welcome speech, but I can't remember. I guess I wasn't paying attention. It was from another community. They had to leave very early and they had their midday meal on the bus. Mother nodded. Do you think it's possible that their rules may be different? And so they simply didn't know what your play area rules were? Lily shrugged and nodded. I suppose. You've visited other communities, haven't you? Jonas asked. My group has often. Lily nodded again. When we were 6s, we went and shared a whole school day with a group of 6s in their community. How did you feel when you were there? Lily frowned. I felt strange because their methods were different. They were learning usages that my group hadn't learned yet, so we felt stupid. Father was listening with interest. I'm thinking, Lily, he said, about the boy who didn't obey the rules today. Do you think it's possible that he felt strange and stupid, being in a new place with rules that he didn't know about? Lily pondered that. Yes, she said finally. I feel a little sorry for him, Jonas said, even though I don't even know him. I feel sorry for anyone who is in a place where he feels strange and stupid. How do you feel now, Lily? Father asked. Still angry? I guess not, Lily decided. I guess I feel a little sorry for him and sorry I made a fist. She grinned. Jonas smiled back at his sister. Lily's feelings were always straightforward, fairly simple, usually easy to resolve. He guessed that his own had been too when he was a 7. He listened politely, though not very attentively, while his father took his turn, describing a feeling of worry that he'd had that day at work, a concern about one of the new children who wasn't doing well. Jonas's father's title was nurturer. He and the other nurturers were responsible for all the physical and emotional needs of every new child during its earliest life. It was a very important job, Jonas knew, but it wasn't one that interested him much. What gender is it? Lily asked. Male, father said. He's a sweet little male with a lovely disposition, but he isn't growing as fast as he should, and he doesn't sleep soundly. We have him in the extra care section for supplementary nurturing, but the committee's beginning to talk about releasing him. Oh no, Mother murmured sympathetically. I know how sad that must make you feel. Jonas and Lily both nodded sympathetically as well. Release of new children was always sad because they hadn't had a chance to enjoy their life within the community yet, and they hadn't done anything wrong. There were only 2 occasions of release which were not punishment. Release of the elderly, which was a time of celebration for a life well and fully lived, and release of a new child, which always brought a sense of what could we have done. This was especially troubling for the nurturers like father, who felt they had failed somehow, but it happened very rarely. Well, father said, I'm going to keep trying. I may ask the committee for permission to bring him here at night, if you don't mind. You know what the night crew nurturers are like. I think this little guy needs something extra. Of course, mother said, and Jonas and Lily nodded. They had heard father complain about the night crew before. It was a lesser job, night crew nurturing, assigned to those who lacked the interest or skills or insight for the more vital jobs of the daytime hours. Most of the people on the night crew had not even been given spouses because they lacked somehow the essential capacity to connect to others, which was required for the creation of a family unit. A lot of information about the community shared in there. I'm sure you're curious about. We'll get into it more later. Maybe we could even keep him, Lily suggested sweetly, trying to look innocent. The look was false or fake. Jonas knew, they all knew. Lily, mother reminded her, smiling, you know the rules. 2 children, 1 male, 1 female to each family unit. It was written very clearly in the rules. Lily giggled. Well, she said, I thought maybe just this once. Next, mother, who held a prominent position at the Department of Justice, talked about her feelings. Today, a repeat offender had been brought before her, someone who had broken the rules before, someone who she hoped had been adequately and fairly punished and who had been restored to his place, to his job, his home, his family unit. To see him brought before her a second time caused her overwhelming feelings of frustration and anger, and even guilt that she hadn't made a difference in his life. I feel frightened too for him, she confessed. You know that there's no third chance. The rules say that if there's a third transgression, he simply has to be released. Jonas shivered. He knew it happened. There was even a boy in his group of 11s whose father had been released years before. No one ever mentioned it. The disgrace was unspeakable. It was hard to imagine. Lily stood up and went to her mother. She stroked her mother's arm. From his place at the table, father reached over and took her hand. Jonas took the other. One by one, they comforted her. Soon she smiled, thanked them, and murmured that she felt soothed. The ritual continued. Jonas, father asked, you're last tonight. Jonas sighed. This evening, he almost would have preferred to keep his feelings hidden, but it was, of course, against the rules. I'm feeling apprehensive, he confessed, glad that the appropriate descriptive word had finally come to him. Why is that, son? His father looked concerned. I know there's really nothing to worry about, Jonas explained, and every adult has been through it. I know you have, Father, and you too, Mother, but it's the ceremony that I'm apprehensive about. It's almost December. Lily looked up, her eyes wide. The ceremony of 12, she whispered in an awed voice. Even the smallest children, Lily's age and younger, knew that it lay in the future for each of them. I'm glad you told us your feelings, Father said. Lily, Mother said, beckoning to the little girl, go on now and get into your night clothes. Father and I are going to stay here and talk to Jonas for a while. Lily sighed. But obediently, she got down from her chair. Privately, she asked. Mother nodded. Yes, she said. This talk will be a private one with Jonas. Okay, so that is the end of the chapter, and I want to remind you that you need to go back to your chart. You're going to finish filling in the third column where you explain these quotes. So now we have a little bit more information about even why Jonas was picking the precise word, because he wanted to share the correct emotion at the evening telling of feelings. And in addition to that, the community we know tries to have that precise word. We saw that in the children's education at school when Asher learned the wrong word. So they're learning to use the best word possible to explain whatever it is. And in this case, it's at his evening telling of feelings. We get a little bit more information of what he's apprehensive about. So it quotes which demonstrate how or why Jonas is apprehensive. Go back to the book there and find at the end, we know that it's the ceremony of 12. Now we do not yet know, we'll find out in the next chapter or so, what the ceremony of 12 is all about. But it's something, you can guess that it's kind of like a coming of age type thing, since he mentions his parents have gone through it, everybody in the community has gone through it, but he is particularly nervous about it. So your own explanation here, but find a quote when he pinpoints what it is specifically that he's apprehensive about. Make sure that you have the page number down there as well. Once that worksheet is completed, you need to make sure that you bring it to class and turn that in. I don't know the due date on this video here, so make sure that you pay attention either in Teams or on the whiteboard in class that you have the correct due date and it's turned in. And I'll see you for chapter 2.